Hello and welcome to Community Connections. I'm Kevin, a communications specialist here at the North Little Rock Public Library. I'm joined by Paul Prater. Paul is I don't know if we would say ghost hunter, but certainly a haunted specialist when it comes to North Little Rock. I'm really looking forward to this show. Paul, thanks so much for being here. How would you describe yourself? What's your title?
So I would say ghost tour guide.
Ghost tour guide.
Or founder of the ghost tours,
Right.
or ghost historian. I don't
Okay.
know. All of
I
that
like
would
the whole
work.
historic aspect of it because there is a real background to some of the stories. And the first time, I'll tell you, just honestly, the first time I heard about you, I thought this guy's just coming down here and just making stuff up. But you're not. There really
No.
is a background to it. And it really focuses on Argenta and the downtown area there. So tell me a little bit about what you do. First of all, you do the tours.
Sure.
So when are those happening?
So the tours are Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays.
Right.
And they started at the end of September and they'll run through the first week of November. And then after that, we will do private tours if people want group tours, but they're mainly just during that Halloween holiday season.
Well, this is just not off the top of the head. You did some research to find out about this. So let's get into that background. How did you find out about the hauntings of Argenta?
Sure. So first of all, I went to sources to get stories. I started by I'd done years ago, probably 15 years ago, had done ghost tours in up north in Jonesboro. And a friend of mine had formed those and he wanted me to take over and kind of gave me the tours. I did that for a few years, but I live here and really wanted to do tours here in Argenta.
Sure.
And so my first stop was the History Commission. I mean, what better place to go for history than the History Commission? And I talked to Kerry Bradburn there. I told him what I wanted to do, not knowing if they would say, get out of here, you crazy or what? And he said, that's awesome. What do you need? And I said, everything. So he gave me history. He already had some stories. But then I spend a lot of my time in Argenta anyway. I did before I ever started the ghost tours. So I just went to businesses and started asking employees if they had ghost stories.
And what did you find out?
I found out there were a lot of ghost stories.
Okay.
So pretty much any old building has some kind of a ghost story attached to it. And it wasn't hard to find some. And then the really cool thing about it, though, that helped it grow, I might be jumping ahead, sorry if I am,
That's
but
fine.
on the tours itself, this is not a big tourist area. So a lot of my attendees are locals. And the stories keep growing because I get stories from locals who have worked in these businesses or they've experienced their own encounters.
Well, I didn't know that until I started working at the library. In fact, I didn't know this until recently, that as it turns out, both of the library locations we have, Lehman, where we're doing this, and also downtown at Argenta, have a haunted past to them. In fact, Lehman, as I understand, was built on an old cemetery. It's the old Odd Fellows Cemetery.
That's correct.
And a big part of this area was. Maybe you could, since you know about it, tell me something about that.
That is correct. A lot of this area being low, up at Cherry Hill, that was the high ground. And this area was not good land. It was swampy. It was not really suitable.
And we've got to go back to before the river was, kind of tamed with the McClellan Curve system too, because
Correct.
that's when things used to flood back then. So does that play into this too? I'm
Yes.
assuming it does.
Absolutely, it does. And if you look just geographically, Little Rock just sits higher geographically. So when the river flooded, it was usually this side of the river that flooded. And there are tons of old pictures of people paddling canoes down Main Street in Argenta from floods in the 1920s in particular. But this area was low lying, and it was actually a combination of it was the taming the river, so to speak, but also draining a lot of the wetlands that we had here. A lot of this area was really swampy, cypress swamps all around through here. And that area was not particularly a good area for settlement. So you had a lot of shacks, and eventually, those were torn down, and the Oddfellows purchased the land and built a pauper cemetery. So anyone could be buried there. And once the cemetery closed, they didn't move the bodies. So you're correct.
Oh, wow.
So the interstate drives
through.
over.
Yeah.
Part of that, in fact, I did this was several years ago, but I did a Facebook Live little mini seance sitting in the gas station parking lot, since that's literally sitting upon an old cemetery.
Yeah.
So.
And what happened? You can't just throw that out there and leave that. What happened?
No, we had some EMF meter going off and a bell ringing when I started calling on the spirits. It was pretty interesting, and I live streamed that all just sitting in my car in a gas station parking lot.
Okay, so have you seen a ghost?
I have experienced things that I can't explain. Seen a ghost? No. But I also see that or interpret that question to mean, have you seen an actual human form apparition?
Right.
I've not. But I've experienced some strange things, particularly in Four Quarter, that are pretty hard to explain.
All right. Yeah, I want to get to that. This
Sure.
is Paul Prater. He is a North Little Rock history expert. We're going to go with that too. And he's also a haunted tour guide here in North Little Rock. And there's some very interesting stories. So, okay, Four Quarter, the bar,
Sure.
which I might have been in a time or two. But so it's haunted there?
There are lots of stories that predate. These are some of the oldest written down and reported stories. In other words, there were stories I could find in books or in the newspaper before I even started working on the ghost tours. So this wasn't just word of mouth stories.
Okay.
They were in print, and they go back to the 1800s and the late 1800s. And it said that there's a ghost of a woman named Anastasia who haunts that location. Now, part of what you mentioned about the history, I'm very, very interested in the history, and I debunked part of that story on the tours. Okay. So the one thing that I feel it's fair to say is I consider myself an open-minded skeptic.
Okay. I think we all are. I mean, I'm open-minded. Okay, show me, I guess, is what my thing is with it.
Right.
But what was Four Quarter what was that building?
So that building was actually not built until 1929.
Okay.
If you look at the buildings on either side, you have the street building that was built in 1898, and you can look at architecturally, it's just distinct. And Brood and Barley is on the other side now, and that was a movie theater at one point in time, and both of those buildings are much older than 1929. The previous bar before Four Quarter was called Sidetracks, and that gives some indication of the past history. The side tracks from the railroad ran through there, so there was no building there previous to 1929 because the railroads had their tracks there.
Seriously, I didn't know that either.
See,
I'm learning all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and same for the Lehman downtown that was the post office and the old funeral home, the Spanish colonial style building. Those were built much later because the railroad tracks went through there. And once the railroads moved to Little Rock, the city and private individuals were able to purchase the land to build on.
It's interesting. And when I say that the library downtown is haunted, our director of that library, her name is Kathy, her and another one of the librarians, Julie, they swear they've heard music. They're playing from a past spirit. They haven't heard it since COVID. But until then, there was nobody in the building, but they could hear music. And they'll swear to it.
I tell stories about that. I did find, so one of the things that I'm real big on is the history. Like you said, this isn't just making up stories. My approach to it is I hear a ghost story and then I want to research the history and see what could possibly explain what people experience in this building. And I found the tie-in to that building with music as well down in what's now the railroad room down in the basement. And I tell that story on the ghost tours as well.
That's really interesting. I mean, I'm fascinated by the whole idea and finding out more about the city that we live in. Too.
Right.
So is there anything that really, when you're on the tour that you take, that has made people, like they said they felt something or they saw evidence on the tours also?
Yeah, so I have pictures. The website's hauntedarkansastours.com. I have pictures under the media section that people took on the tours of orbs or outlines or weird images they've seen. I don't put up anything I take. I think that's automatically suspect. So I don't do any of that. And everything up there is from other people. Some people have captured it on film, documented it, and when they send those to me, I post them up. And some people have told me, like, I saw orbs around you when you were doing this seance.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I wish you would have gotten pictures. That would have been awesome. But like, for instance, in Four Quarter, on the very first tour, Booze and Brews, which is one of my two where we go into some of the bars and do a little seance and psychic work, the story is that this spirit of Anastasia has been seen on the stairs in Four Quarter. And we had our whole group there. So our whole group witnessed this. We go to the bar, get our drinks, go upstairs. This woman standing on the stairs, and it looked like someone shoved her. I don't mean fell. It looked like she was shoved. No one around her, hit the ground. They had to take her out on a stretcher. We had to sit there for like a half an hour until EMS could get there and cart her out. That's pretty intense. Yeah. Yeah. And our whole group saw that one.
Do you have to sign a waiver?
No, I don't. She was not part of our group, thankfully. No, I don't make people sign waivers. I hope they'll be responsible and safe. That's part of my job, though, is shepherding people along. And,
how many people go on the group tours?
So I cap them at 20. Okay. And that's just for the purpose of I want everyone to enjoy it. Yeah. And you can imagine 20 people around you is a fairly good size. Mm-hmm. I don't like the idea of having to wear microphones or speakers. I also find that kind of obnoxious. And I want to be a good partner with the city.
But this is fun. It kind of reminds me of some of the things they do in New Orleans.
Sure.
Where they go do the graveyard tours or the downtown tours and the haunted area. So we've got the same thing. Is it, I don't know how to put it in terms, on a scale of 1 to 10, how haunted is Argenta?
The stories you hear down there and the amount of death that occurred down there, I would put it pretty high up. The Trail of Tears passed through parts of Argenta. So you have that history there. And that was over a period of 30 years, as many as 46,000 natives camped on those banks of Argenta and moved across the river. So you've got a lot of death there. And then this area initially was really founded by the railroads in the 1860s. Prior to that, there was not a lot of settlement. This was, going back further in history, the first federal land that was granted to the Cherokee Nation, everything from the banks of the river up to the White River. So they were forced off the land. Then you had the Trail of Tears. In the 1860s, you had the railroads, and these guys weren't family men who brought families. There was a lot of prostitution, a lot of drinking, a lot of gambling, a lot of murdering. There were lynchings down here in Argenta. I mean, there was a lot of roughness for a very long time.
Yeah, a lot of violent outs. Yeah,
absolutely.
Crossing the river Styx and going the wrong way.
Right.
This is what you're doing here.
Right.
Paul Prater is a ghost tour guide in downtown North Little Rock. Again, where can I find your tours?
HauntedArgentaTours.com.
Okay.
And it has all of the dates and all the tickets. They're up there right now. And I would recommend, if people want to get them because we're booking up fast.
I'm going to make it a point. That sounds like a great date night. It really does. It's going to be a lot of fun. So little tip here too. We're going to do something on Halloween night. I'm going to lead a tour that won't be anywhere near as fun as Paul's, I'm sure. But it's for teens specifically, 12 to 18. We'll talk about the history of both of our library locations. And a little bit, we'll kind of touch on some of the history downtown in North Little Rock too. That's a free event if you'd like to come. Hey, by the way, thank you for joining us today. We hope you'll check out all of our stuff on our website, nlrlibrary.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. If there's a social media venue, we have it for you. We'll catch you next time on Community Connections. Paul, thanks so much for being here.
Appreciate it.